Some homes I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Not because they look bad. In fact, they often look great. They've got a good layout, a nice neighborhood, staged to impress. But underneath, they're financial landmines. And the damage, well, it doesn't show up right away. It tends to creep in after the excitement fades. When life gets busy or the interest rates shift, or you try and sell and you realize that nobody wants what you've got. So I'm talking about things like condos in buildings with hidden pending levies and bad reputations, or townhomes with strata fees rising faster than their value, and detached homes in flood zones or isolated pockets that buyers avoid like the plague. And most buyers, they never see it coming. They get caught up in the moment, the pressure, the fear of missing out. And then a year later, they're trapped in a property that's quietly bleeding them dry. And here's the thing. The warning signs were always there. You just have to know where to look. And so in this compilation video, I'm going to break down the types of homes that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Because when that market shifts, and it always does, these are the types of homes that drop the fastest. They take the longest to sell, and you will lose the most money. With real estate prices continuing to rise, more and more people are turning to condo living. Now, whether you're a first-time home buyer or perhaps you have a detached home and you're looking to downsize, it's going to be key and very important that you understand the dynamics of purchasing a condo and specifically the things to look out for. Buying a condo, it can be a fantastic investment, but it can be filled with potential pitfalls that could turn your dream purchase into quite literally a nightmare. So make sure you stick around because today I'm going to uncover the hidden traps when buying a condo that you need to watch out for, including things that could potentially increase its future value and also have a massive negative impact on its future value. But before we get started, if you're new to this channel, my name is Glen Hopkins, and on this channel I create videos all about Canadian real estate and my local market of Surrey and White Rock, BC. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe now, and that way you're not going to miss out on any of my upcoming videos. Also, if you're looking for some help, if you'd like my help with either buying or selling a home here in the Surrey White Rock area, feel free to click on the link in the description box to schedule a call with me. And I should say also, if you're anywhere else in Canada and you need a referral to a fantastic agent, don't worry, I've got you covered. I know amazing agents throughout the country, and I can gladly connect you with them. All right, so let's get started. First up is condo fees. Understanding what the condo fee you're going to be paying is very key. So it's different in every market, so make sure you understand what the average condo fee is for a home in your market. So for example, if you're in Surrey, a 2-bedroom condo currently right now, you're looking at about a $400 to $500 a month condo fee or a strata maintenance fee. Now, it's really important that you be aware of condos that have a low maintenance fee because sometimes that can be a red flag. So you're going to see that in two types of homes. Number one, if it's a brand new build, if it's new construction or if it's 1 or 2 years old, you might see low strata maintenance fees, and that can be very enticing. But it's also a red flag because more often than not, within a year or two, those fees are going to go up, and they're usually going to go up by a couple of $100s, if not more. So you need to be prepared for that. You need to budget for that because otherwise, hey, a couple of $100, it could be a big surprise for you. Also with condos that are a little bit older, so I'm talking really anything 5 years and older, if you see the maintenance fees as being lower than what most other condos are going for right now, if those strata fees are too low, it's usually a red flag that the strata management isn't doing a proper job of collecting enough fees. So you need to make sure that you review all of the strata docs and the budget and check for planned increases, because again, if it's low, chances are they're planning an increase in the near future, which leads us to special assessments. If you've got a low strata maintenance fee coming in every month, there's a good chance that they don't have enough money in what's called their contingency reserve fund, or CRF. In BC, you should have a minimum of 25% of your operating budget in your strata contingency reserve fund. If you don't, that puts you at risk. You see, because this reserve fund, again, it's used for potential, and well, I shouldn't say potential, because there are absolutely things that will come up in the future that need to be repaired on the condo. Everything, just like a house, needs repair over time. And so this CRF, it's designed as a sort of a savings account, if you will, and that's exactly what it is a savings account for potential issues and repairs, maintenance costs that are going to be coming up in the future. And if they're not collecting enough through your maintenance fees each month, that reserve fund is going to be too low. If it's too low and something comes up, and it will, you're going to need a new roof, boiler systems, electrical issues, balcony issues, new windows, so on and so forth. Just like a house, these things happen with a condo building as well. And when they come up, they need to have the funds in the reserve fund to pay for them. If they don't, they're going to have a special assessment or a levy. And that means basically they're going to knock on your door and the doors of everyone else in the strata complex looking for money. The next thing you want to be careful of and really closely look at are the rules and restrictions of that condo building. You know, what are the bylaws? For example, barbecues. Are you allowed to barbecue on the balcony? If you like to barbecue, that's going to be pretty important. So make sure you're allowed to have a barbecue on the balcony. Smoking. Is it a non-smoking building, or is there smoking allowed in the building? You know, if you don't like smoke, or you're allergic to smoke or anything like that, and people are smoking, your neighbor smokes, that's not something you're going to be comfortable with, and you're going to have to live with that. So make sure you understand those bylaws very clearly. And a big one is pets and pet restrictions. Make sure you clearly understand what the pet restrictions are. Typically you're allowed to have one dog or one cat, but if you have a dog and it's a bigger dog, you want to know exactly what the measurements of the dog are allowed. Also, certain breeds of dogs are not allowed in some buildings. So again, just be very careful. The last thing you want to do is move into a building assuming that the type of dog that you have is allowed, and then next thing you know, you're getting hit with daily fines because you're not allowed that type of dog in the building, and ultimately you have to pay those fines or potentially have to, give up your dog or move out. So make sure that you're comfortable with what these rules are so that you can avoid any, future fines and penalties. And by the way, if you're getting any value out of this video, do me a favor, quickly hit that like button. It helps me get the word out to other people just like you looking for this type of information. All right, let's talk about parking and storage. Now, when you buy a condo, it typically comes with storage and 1 or 2 parking spaces. But you want to ask a couple of things. Number one is, are there any restrictions to the size and type of vehicle that you park in your parking stall? Some buildings will not allow a commercial vehicle or vehicles over a certain size. Another key piece, by the way, is electric vehicles. With more and more people buying electric vehicles, you want to make sure that it has a EV charger. If it doesn't, are you allowed to install one? Because if not, that could be a potential problem. If you have an electric vehicle, drive underground to the underground parking and make sure you have a Wi-Fi connection. Some vehicles, they do their updates over the internet, while the vehicles sit there parked. And if it's sitting there parked overnight in a parking stall underground and you don't have a Wi-Fi connection, that could be a potential issue for you. So it's just something to be aware of. Also, you want to make sure that you have sufficient storage. Some places they'll allow you to put some storage. They might allow you to store your bike or some boxes or a shopping cart, things of that nature in front of your vehicle in your parking stall. Other buildings strictly prohibit that. So you want to make sure about that, because storage in a condo is one of the biggest issues, especially if you're moving from a detached house and you're downsizing. You have a lot of stuff that you've collected over the years. Where are you going to put it? So you want to make sure what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. Now, of course, most strata units, they come also with a storage unit. However, some do not. Some have a so-called storage unit within the condo itself. So really, that's just a bigger closet. So again, just make sure you have enough room to store your stuff. Now, next up is noise levels. When you live in a condo, you're typically going to be sharing walls with your neighbors. You're going to be sharing the side walls, not to mention the floors and the ceilings as well. So it's important to understand how loud that building is, what the type of construction is. Is it concrete or is it hardwood? These things make a difference. Also, you want to know if you're allowed to put in hardwood. Some condos will not allow hardwoods or hard surface floors because of the noise that they generate. Or if you do put in a hardwood floor, you have to put a certain amount of padding below that to absorb the noises. You might also want to know about who is living upstairs and what kind of flooring they have. You know, if they have hardwood floors and there are a couple of ladies living upstairs with high heels or cowboy boots, that can make a lot of noise coming from the floor above. So just be aware of those types of things and do a little bit of research. Go and visit the condo at different times throughout the day. Now this is for any type of property that you purchase, whether it's a detached home, condo, or townhouse. It's really a good idea to go multiple times during different times of the day to check for different noise levels. So with a condo, make sure you go there, you open the doors, the windows, and listen for traffic. Is there a lot of traffic in the area? Is it on a main through street? Are there buses and trucks going by? These are all things that you want to look out for. And also, don't be afraid to ask the residents about their experience with noise as well. You know, typically when you're visiting a condo building to view it, to possibly purchase it, you're going to see some of the other neighbors in the elevator walking around. So say hello and ask a couple of questions, because those neighbors can give you some true insights that you might not otherwise hear about on the MLS or through the seller's realtor. Now, the next one up is the depreciation report. This is something very important that you look at. It's also sometimes referred to as a reserve fund study, but there's 4 things that you're going to see in the report, and that is the physical condition, cost estimates, finances, and a maintenance schedule. Now, regarding the physical inspection, an inspector, they evaluate the current condition of the building and all of its components, including things like the roof, you know, the elevators, and plumbing, electrical systems, and any other significant assets in the building. Now, the next piece of the report is a cost estimate. So the report, it's going to provide a cost estimate for both current and future repairs and replacements. Okay, so this includes both immediate maintenance needs and also those that are expected over a 30-year time frame. So they look out far into the future, into 30 years, understanding what's expected to come your way. And it's going to include a financial analysis of the Strata Corporation's reserve fund, and it's going to provide funding models to ensure that there's enough adequate funds to cover those future expenses. And this is going to help you determine the necessary contributions that you as a strata owner have to put into that contingency reserve fund. And then lastly, the depreciation report, it's going to outline a maintenance schedule listing which components will need attention and when they're going to need that attention. And it's going to help the Strata Corporation prioritize when their maintenance needs to be done. So as you can see, a depreciation report can be very important. It's really important that you get a hold of it and review it closely. Now, aside from that, you also want to visually look with your naked eye at the building's maintenance and upkeep. So you want to check for the condition of the common areas, things like the lobby and the hallways, and amenities. Are they in poor condition? Because that can be a real red flag of management issues. And if things aren't being taken care of properly, that can seriously affect the resale value of your unit. Now, in just a second, I'm going to share with you a crucial hidden trap that could impact your condo investment. But before I do that, let's talk quickly about insurance coverage. Now, condo insurance for the building itself is different than homeowner insurance, okay, and tenant insurance, all different types of insurance. So when you buy a condo or into a stratified property, it's going to have insurance on the building itself. And with that insurance, it can be very costly, and you want to make sure that the insurance covers the building correctly and sufficiently. You also want to know what the deductibles are on that insurance policy. For larger catastrophic type events, like if there's a flood or an earthquake, the deductibles can be very large, to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars. So, and you could end up having to pay those deductibles. So it's important that you understand what the policy covers, what the deductibles are, and then you want to call to get homeowner insurance for your condo. So you're going to want to call some insurance companies, find out if the building is insurable or not, and if they will insure you or not. If you have a hard time getting insurance, that's a huge red flag, because if insurers aren't willing to insure condos within that building, that tells you something, right? You also, when you call those insurance, want to find out if you can buy deductible buy down insurance. And that's just basically insurance that if in the case of a major event, a flood, an earthquake, if you're hit with that $10,000 deductible or whatever that number is, that you have other additional insurance on top of that that will buy down that deductible, so you don't have to pay that huge deductible. Now, when you buy your condo, it's also crucial to understand the current market trends and resale value of your condo, because some condos will appreciate faster due to things like their location, the building age, and the amenities within the building. You know, not everybody wants a pool in their condo, not to mention things like pools and other amenities, gyms and what have you, yoga rooms. Those things are great. They can be very enticing, but they also typically increase your maintenance fees and also your potential for special levies. You know, to maintain a pool can be very expensive. So if you're not going to use that pool, if there is a pool in the condo, you might want to consider looking elsewhere, because that's going to be a future cost for you and the other owners of that building. And of course, that can affect resale value. Other things, again, can affect resale value, such as the floor plan. So you want to make sure you purchase a good floor plan. Floor plans where you buy a condo with a lot of those angled walls and what have you, those are not very functional and they can be hard to resell. So make sure you're aware that you get a good floor plan. There's other factors as well. We can talk about that in another video perhaps. And then location, okay? Think about where you're buying that condo. Where is it actually sitting? Is it next to transit? Transit can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing because it brings in different types of people into the neighborhood and around your building. So be aware of that. Is there planned future development near your condo? You know, perhaps right now you're looking at a condo, it's got a beautiful ocean view or a view of the mountains or whatever, but there's plans to build another condo in the near future that's going to directly impact your view. Now, if that's going to impact your view in the future, that's also going to impact your future resale value of that condo. Townhouses often seem like the perfect middle ground between a detached home and a condo. But here's the thing, if you're not careful, what may look like the perfect home could quickly turn into your worst nightmare. And I'm talking about constant repair bills, neighbor issues that can literally keep you up at night, repair bills that can financially cripple you, and at the end of the day, a property that might be a struggle for you to resell because of a slew of unforeseen problems. So I just want you to be aware that if you come across a townhouse at a price that seems too good to be true, well, there's usually a reason for that. And those reasons could potentially end up draining your bank account later on down the road. And so today I'm going to reveal 10 big mistakes that buyers make when buying a townhouse. And trust me, whether you're a first-time home buyer or a seasoned homeowner, you're going to want to stick around until the end of this video, because if you miss just one of these, it could cost you a ton in unexpected expenses and frustration. Or even worse, it could trap you in a home that nobody else ever wants to buy. Now, before we get into this, if you're new to this channel, my name is Glen Hopkins, and I create videos all about Canadian real estate and my local market of Surrey and White Rock, BC. So if that's something you're interested in, please be sure to go ahead, hit that subscribe button. That way you're not going to miss out on any of my upcoming videos. Also, if you would like my help with either buying or selling a home, there is a link in the description box below where you can schedule a call with me. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Number one is the low strata fees and a small contingency reserve fund, or the CRF as they call it. Now, low strata fees, it might seem like a win at first glance. I mean, we all want to pay less each month, right? But here's the catch. If the strata fees, if they seem too low, this is a major red flag that the contingency reserve fund, or the CRF, is underfunded. And the purpose of this fund is to cover big repairs, things like your roof replacement, building maintenance, landscaping, and so much more. And if it's underfunded, guess who's going to be on the hook when something goes wrong? You are. So you really want to beware. And know that when you see low strata fees today, they often mean big bills later down the road. So make sure that the CRF balance, you want to look at that and make sure there's a healthy reserve. Generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, the CRF should hold approximately 25% of whatever the strata's yearly expense budget is. So make sure that you review this very carefully with the help of your realtor. And if you find that the reserve fund is low, that's a red flag. It's a sign of financial trouble ahead. And sadly, a lot of buyers miss this very important detail, only to end up with serious headaches later down the road as problems within the townhouse complex, they start to pop up. And that leads us to every strata owner's worst nightmare, and that is the special assessment. Now, this is where it can get really pricey. But really quick, before I get into special assessments, I'm curious, if you're thinking about buying a townhouse, but you haven't done so yet, what's been holding you back specifically? What's your biggest concern? Go ahead, let me know in the comments below, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and talk about special assessments. And this is something that every homeowner in a stratified property fears, and for very good reason. Special assessments are where townhouse ownership can go sideways really fast because, well, frankly, they can quite literally financially ruin some people. So to help protect and prepare yourself against this sort of thing, you want to make sure you review the depreciation report. Now, this is going to be an absolute must because the depreciation report is where you're going to find a complete list of items, many big ticket items, things that at a specific point in the future, they will need to be repaired or replaced. Things like, the new roof or new painting of the entire complex or replacing all of the fencing or all of the windows, swimming pools, pending legal disputes, all sorts of things that are big, expensive stuff. So if the strata hasn't saved enough to cover these expected, and they are expected expenses, you are more than likely looking at a very hefty bill. And here's the real kicker. They can hit you with these assessments with little or no warning, and they can demand that you pay, or you're going to face penalties and potential legal action. So it's super important. Always dig into the depreciation report and ask those tough questions. Don't just take the seller's word for it either, okay? You want to get all of the facts because missing this could set you up for financial disaster, quite literally. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. Number 3 is buying a townhouse without a fenced yard. Now, I know this might seem like a small detail, but if you've got pets or kids or you've ever thought about reselling later down the road, a fenced yard is going to be a definite bonus. It's one of those features that adds resale value and it's going to make life just way more convenient. Without a fenced yard, you're going to be stuck with constantly walking your dog or, worrying about your kids running out on the street. Not to mention a fenced yard, it's also a big selling point when it comes time to resell. So, I know that a lot of people don't think about this before it's actually too late. So consider buying a townhouse with a fenced yard. And if it doesn't have one, consider going the other direction. And speaking of pets, it's not just about having a yard. There is something else that could become an even bigger issue for you, and that is pet restrictions. Pet restrictions can be a deal breaker. Unfortunately, it can blindside a lot of buyers. That's because a lot of people, they just kind of assume that, your pet-friendly golden retriever or whatever is welcome, but strata bylaws, they can actually be surprisingly strict, and they can often limit the size or the number or even the breed of the types of pets allowed. And so here's a very important tip for you, and that is these things, if they're not clearly outlined in the bylaws, you always want to get confirmation in writing. You want to get it in writing from the strata council before making an offer or removing your subjects. Make sure that you can get your pet into your unit without any issues. Otherwise, you may end up finding out too late that, your dog, or maybe you've got a potbelly pig, I don't know, whatever, is not welcome in the complex. And you really don't want to be in that situation where you're forced to choose between, rehoming your pet or backing out of the purchase. And trust me, this is something that happens more often than you might think, and it can be a total nightmare. And if you think pet restrictions are a potential pitfall worth avoiding, wait until you hear about playgrounds. At first glance, having a playground near your townhouse, it might sound like a great idea, especially if you have young kids. But let's be real. Kids are loud, and that noise doesn't stop just because you need some quiet time. And a lot of people, we work from home nowadays, or, you simply want to have a peaceful afternoon. I don't know about you, but have you ever tried taking a nap or hosting a Zoom meeting with your boss or maybe even a client with screaming kids outside your window? Hey, we all love kids and we want them to have fun, but the noise that comes hand in hand with kids having fun is a very common reason why a playground next to your home can be a serious annoyance. And let's not forget that there's also a legal aspect that you need to consider here. If a child gets hurt on that playground, you could potentially be held responsible. And those legal costs, well, guess what? They're shared among all of the homeowners. And that, again, it includes you. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, do me a favor, would you go ahead, hit that like button? It just takes a second, but it really helps me get the word out to other people just like you looking for this kind of information. Okay, next up, let's talk about something that's often overlooked when it comes to buying a townhouse, and that is visitor parking. Now, visitor parking, it might not be top of mind when you're shopping for a townhouse, but it is something that you're definitely going to notice once you move in. You know, if visitor parking is limited, your guests, they're going to end up having to park on the street or possibly even blocks away. And that's just, well, it's plain annoying, especially during holidays or special events when those visitor spots, they all fill up very quickly, leaving your guests with nowhere at all to park. So make sure your complex has ample visitor parking, you know, or those social plans, they could quickly become something frustrating, a frustrating situation. But parking issues, they don't just stop with your visitors. We got to also talk about the types of garages that can become a daily headache if you're not careful. So number 7 is, well, the garage. Parking is one of those everyday factors that can either make your life a lot easier or it can be a pain in the butt, quite frankly. And you know, single garages and tandem garage setups, they're very common in townhouses nowadays. And I'm going to tell you right now, they can be very annoying, especially if you and your partner work different shifts and every morning or evening you're faced with, you know, having to rotate your vehicles just so that you can get off to work on time. Now, obviously, this isn't always an option, and yes, it probably is a first world problem, but ideally, you want to have a double wide garage. And even better, if you can, look for a double wide driveway wherever possible. Now, this is something that a lot of buyers, they don't give it much thought. But just keep that in mind. It just makes parking way easier on the day-to-day, especially if you've got multiple vehicles or if maybe, you know, you need that extra space for storage in the garage. But you know what? Even if you've got your parking set up just perfect, there is another thing, and that's poor soundproofing. Soundproofing can, or not having it or a lack of soundproofing, can ruin absolutely everything. So it's something that you definitely need to be on the watch out for, because the last thing you're going to want is to hear your neighbors. You're not going to want to hear them stomping around, arguing, or blasting their music really late at night. And you know, inadequate soundproofing can make a townhouse, it kind of feel like you're living in a fishbowl where every single sound is going to carry. So before you buy, always check on the soundproofing, because thin walls and rooms and floors, it means that you're going to be dealing with constant noise, and that noise can seriously wear on you after a while. But thin walls are not the only issue here. You know, the layout of the townhouse is another really crucial factor that a lot of people actually overlook. Layouts matter more than you might think, and it's not just the layout of your unit, but also the shared walls between you and your neighbors. You know, you've got to ask, does your bedroom share a wall with your neighbor? Is your bedroom next to your neighbor's TV room maybe? I don't know about you guys, but I'm a really light sleeper, and there's certain noises that I don't want to hear from my neighbors, if you know what I mean. Also, although they are getting harder to come by, you're going to want to look for units that have that wider footprint, okay? Fewer floors and minimal stairs if possible. Because the long vertical layouts with multiple layers, they can be a bit of a pain, especially if you plan on aging in your place or if you have any types of mobility issues. Plus, the more common traditional wider layout, it's generally going to be more functional, and it's going to appeal to a sort of a wider range of buyers when it comes time for you to resell. Okay, so we've covered some of the biggest townhouse pitfalls, but there is one that might just be the most important thing, and that one could be a real game changer for you. Now, I get it. I know that townhouses, they might seem really straightforward, but the hidden costs and unexpected rules can come back to bite you. Things like surprise strata fees or unexpected maintenance costs, and those quirky rules that limit how you use your space can turn your dream home into a source of constant stress. So you want to make sure that you always read all of the strata documents and all of the general meetings and all of the special general meeting minutes, okay? You want to make sure that you go back a full 2 years and make sure that you read all of this, okay? And make sure that you read the fine print as well and ask every single question that you can think of. And that way you're going to know exactly what you're getting into before you sign anything. beware, because some homes here, they might seem like a great deal, but they can turn into financial nightmares faster than you can say hidden cost. Now, there are some types of houses and properties that you should never buy unless, of course, you're ready to pour money into endless repairs and deal with constant stress. And so today I'm going to reveal exactly which types of houses to avoid in order to save you from expensive surprises. And make sure that you stick around until the end, because the last type of house on this list is one that even seasoned buyers often overlook. And it's a trap that can catch anyone off guard. Now, I know that the Vancouver market is as hot as it gets. And of course, every buyer, they want to snag a great deal. And sometimes that excitement can make even experienced buyers overlook some crucial details. But here is the reality. There are certain types of properties that are more trouble than they are actually worth. And these homes, they're often hidden with costly issues, whether it's dangerous old wiring, water damage, or do-it-yourselfer jobs that end up requiring you to have to hire a professional to come in and fix that poor workmanship. And so in this video, I'm going to walk you through the types of houses that tend to look good on paper, but can often turn into absolute money pits. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what type of homes to watch out for, and more importantly, how to avoid making a very costly mistake. So let's start things off with one that's very easy to fall in love with, and that is heritage homes. Now, these beauties, they're totally packed with history, of course. They have unique architecture oftentimes, and all the character that you could possibly hope for. But you don't want to let that charm fool you, because owning one of these could mean that you're signing up for a never-ending list of repairs and expenses. So here's what you're often dealing with these types of homes. These homes, they frequently have original plumbing, and that could mean lead pipes, which of course was very common back in the 1950s, but now they are considered to be a major health hazard. And replacing those pipes, well, you're going to be looking at a huge cost, sometimes to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars. And then, of course, let's not forget about the electrical. Many of these old homes, they have what's called knob and tube wiring, which is not only outdated, but it's also a fire hazard. And fixing that, it could mean another massive hit on your budget. But that's really just the start of it all. Let's not forget about asbestos, which is another very big concern. It can be in the walls, around the pipes, even in the floor tiles. And safe removal of this asbestos is absolutely essential, and it is far from cheap. So, you add that into possibly a crumbling foundation, drafty windows, and constant maintenance. All of these potential issues can add up very, very fast and could literally leave you staring at some very hefty bills in order to just keep your heritage home in proper shape. By the way, real quick, if you are new to this channel, my name is Glen Hopkins, and I create videos all about Canadian real estate, especially around Vancouver and the Fraser Valley area. So if that is something you're interested in, please be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming videos. And also, of course, if you would like my help with either buying or selling a home here in the greater Vancouver area, there is a link in the description box below where you can schedule a call with me. Next up are homes with structural issues. Now, this one's a real biggie here. Problems with foundation, sagging roofs, or walls that look like they're shifting anyways, these can all mean massive repair bills. And here's the kicker. Oftentimes these issues, they aren't obvious when you're just walking through the house. And so this is going to be where a pro home inspection is going to be worth its weight in gold. You're going to want to watch out for things like large cracks in the foundation, sloping floors, or windows or doors that are sticking, okay? These might seem like minor things, but they can be red flags for foundational issues. And if they're left unchecked, you could be looking at a full foundation replacement, which could easily run you tens of thousands of dollars. And so if you don't already have a trusted home inspector, don't worry about that, okay? I can introduce you to some excellent inspectors who go through every square inch of the property inside and out from top to bottom. So just know that whatever you do, remember that a thorough inspection can make all of the difference in avoiding some very, very costly mistakes. All right, next up, let's talk about flood zones. Now, Vancouver is known for its rain, and if you're in a flood-prone area, you're signing up for potential problems. Flooding can cause major damage to your home's foundation. It can lead to mold issues, and of course, it can spike your insurance premiums. And let's face it, flood insurance is not cheap. For high-risk properties, it can cost you hundreds or even thousands of dollars every year. And if you need a recent reminder of how serious this risk can be, just take a look at the recent floodings that happened in Vancouver. The heavy rain that we had, it completely overwhelmed the drainage systems. It led to widespread damage, evacuations, and costly repairs. And these events, they show just how vulnerable certain areas can be and how quickly flood damage can turn into major financial and emotional burdens for people. So here's what you need to do. Before making an offer, check out Vancouver's floodplain maps, and you can find these online, and they show exactly which areas are at risk. And remember, it's not just about the storms that cause flooding. Heavy rain, melting snow, and even rising water tables can lead to all of this type of trouble as well. So you definitely want to check out those maps before you commit to buying a new home. Okay, now this next one, it's a little bit of a wild card, but you want to look out for homes with poor workmanship. Now, this can happen, of course, in any type of house, whether it's new or old, and it can be especially tricky to spot. There's going to be some homes that are plagued with what I call weekend warrior do-it-yourself projects. So, there's well-meaning do-it-yourselfer jobs that might look great on the surface, but they often need to be redone by a professional to make them safe and functional. When touring a home, you really want to keep an eye open for things like uneven floors, sloppy paint jobs, gaps in the molding, or even crooked cabinetry, because these little signs, they can point to bigger issues behind the scenes. And so think about it. I mean, if they haven't or didn't put the time and care into those basics, what does it say about the work that you can't actually see, the things behind the wall? And here's a real quick tip also. You want to bring a marble with you when you view these homes. Place it on the floor, and if it starts to roll, you're likely dealing with an uneven surface, which is definitely a sign. Also, you want to watch out, especially for quick flip type houses where, there's investors that may have rushed through some of the renovations trying to turn a fast profit. There are some of those flips out there that focus more on the cosmetic fixes than on the solid, lasting, constructional type fixes. So you definitely want to keep a close eye on those details, because catching poor workmanship up front, it can save you a lot of headaches and repair bills down the road. And number 5 are houses in noisy and less desirable locations. Yes, location, location, location. You've heard it before, and it's definitely something that's worth repeating, because even a fantastic home can lose its shine if it's in a poor location. So think about homes near train tracks or, busy highways or industrial zones. They can really struggle to hold their value. And a hard to sell house or hard to sell location can turn into a big headache down the line. So here's my advice on this one. You definitely want to take a drive around the neighborhood and visit at different times of the day, if at all possible, because noise levels and local activity can vary a lot from the morning to the evening. And also be sure to check out the nearby amenities as well. Houses without parks or shops or schools nearby, they may be less attractive to future buyers. And of course, while you're living there, it can also impact your lifestyle as well. All right, the next one, it might seem small, but trust me, it can turn into a massive headache for you. And that is unpermitted work. Unpermitted work is much more common than you might think. And some homers, what they'll do is skip permits to avoid taxes or to sidestep inspections. But if you buy a place with unpermitted work, the city could actually come after you to fix it, and that could mean expensive repairs or even having to tear down parts of your home. So here's what I would suggest you do. You should always ask for the property's permit history. Now, this is something that you and your realtor can check with the city records, and it's going to show you any recent renovations that have been done without permit. And this way, if something doesn't add up, you can either walk away from the deal or you can have the seller, they can handle it before closing. But just believe me when I say that unpermitted work is something that you definitely want to avoid. It can be really, really messy. Now let's talk about underground oil tanks, which is a surprisingly common issue in older Vancouver homes. So of course, back in the day, oil tanks, they were used for heating, but many of these old homes and these old tanks were never removed, and they were just literally left there underground to rust away. And here's the thing, these tanks, they can be both an environmental and a financial liability. And that's because over time, old oil tanks, they can corrode and leak oil into the soil, which of course not only poses a very serious environmental hazard, but also comes with some very hefty cleanup costs. In fact, if you buy a property with an old leaking oil tank, the responsibility and the bill for the cleanup is often going to fall on you, the buyer. And we're not talking about a small charge here either. Environmental remediation for old oil contamination can cost literally tens of thousands of dollars. So here's what I would suggest you do. You always should check for underground oil tanks when considering buying an older home. And if there is a tank that is found, you want to insist on its safe removal before you purchase. And some cities will even require you to provide documentation that any old oil tanks have been decommissioned. So you definitely want to make sure that you ask your realtor to look into that for you. All right, now I understand that everything that we talked about might sound a little bit harsh, but hey, my job is to help you avoid costly mistakes and instead make smart buying decisions.